At this time, I will pass it off to Governor Abbott.
Well, Judge, first I want to thank you for your tireless efforts over the past few hours to help your county respond to this. We appreciate you and your entire team stepping up and showing the way to respond to what has to be probably the worst disaster ever to strike this community. Also want to express my gratitude to the other officials who are gathering with us here today. This is just the beginning of what will be a very robust response by both local, state, and federal officials. We come together today as we deal with one of the most heinous attacks that we've ever seen in the history of Texas schools. It's impossible to describe the magnitude of the evil of someone who would attack innocent children in a school, a place of learning where parents should be able to send their children without fear for their child's safety. It's with a very heavy heart that I can confirm that as of this time, there have been 10 lives that have been lost and another 10 that have been wounded. We grieve for the victims who lost their lives at Santa Fe High School, and we pray for the families who are suffering and will continue to suffer in the days to come. Nothing can prepare a parent for the loss of a child. This will be a long and painful time for these parents as they work their way through what has to be the greatest challenge they've ever dealt with. We mourn with them. We mourn as fellow Texans. But we must come together as one community at this time of enormous suffering and show the victims and their families the support they need and they deserve. We appreciate all the first responders who've already stepped up to help respond to this challenge, and we look to God. We look to God to give the first responders as well as the victims and their families the guidance they need in the coming days and weeks as we work to continue to get to the bottom of what happened and, very importantly, work to respond to this challenge. I ask the rest of the country to join Texas in mourning the loss of these individuals, these students, and to offer your prayers and support of these families. And I ask every parent out there, wherever you may be, to hold your children close tonight and let them know how much you love them. Now, we have two goals going forward. The immediate goal is to work in the immediate aftermath of this catastrophe to gather the evidence and information that is needed to ensure that this crime is going to be prosecuted appropriately, while also working in tandem to ensure that we provide the families and victims as well as all the children at this school and schools across the entire independent school district with the support and resources and counseling they need. Second, we need to do more than just pray for the victims and their families. It's time in Texas that we take action to step up and make sure this tragedy is never repeated ever again in the history of the state of Texas. So, beginning immediately, I'm going to be working with members of the Texas legislature, but also members of our communities across the entire state of Texas to begin with roundtable discussions beginning next week, where we will assemble all stakeholders to begin to work immediately on swift solutions to prevent tragedies like this from ever happening again. We want to hear from parents, we want to hear from students, we want to hear from educators, we want to hear from concerned citizens, we want to hear from those who hold the Second Amendment right in high esteem. We want to hear from everybody who has an interest in what has happened today so we can work together on putting together laws that will protect Second Amendment rights, but at the same time ensure that our communities and especially our schools are safer places. These include things like speeding background checks. They also include strategies to keep guns out of the hands of those who pose an immediate danger to others. They include providing more resources to our schools to make sure that they have the safety personnel who can help protect their schools. It also means providing resources to address the mental health issues behind gun violence with a focus to reduce gun violence. It also means perhaps expanding a program that we've seen work effectively in the Lubbock Independent School District, where they have ways of measuring mental health challenges of students and being able to identify those who may pose a risk, and looking to deploy those strategies in school districts across the state of Texas. Listen, the fact of the matter is, in the fog of the aftermath of a catastrophe like this, the answers are not always immediate, but the answers will come by us working together. Now, that said, I do want to cover some of the details of where we stand right now, understanding that we will be providing updates later. I mentioned those who have been identified as being deceased and wounded, and we will provide an update on that later on. We are still, law enforcement is still in the process of undertaking both searches and investigation of the entire scene as well as other locations. They have warrants out concerning the person who was responsible for the shooting, and they include warrants to search 2 residences. The reason why there is some slowness in being able to undertake these searches is because of the potential for explosive devices to be found in these residences, as they want to make sure they're able to enter them without anybody being harmed. One reason why there is concern about explosive devices is that various different kinds of explosive devices have already been detected. One was a CO2 device, another was a Molotov cocktail, and there are various other types of explosive devices that have been identified both in a home as well as in a vehicle. There's also a search warrant out for the vehicle of the shooter, but again, care and caution is being undertaken to make sure that entry is not made into that vehicle in a way that could pose harm to the people who are trying to enter into it. We also know information already that the shooter has information contained in journals on his computer and his cell phone that he said that not only did he want to commit the shooting, but he wanted to commit suicide after the shooting. As you probably know, he gave himself up and admitted at the time that he didn't have the courage to commit the suicide, that he wanted to take his own life earlier. Is currently at the Santa Fe Police Department. The Santa Fe Police Department is working in collaboration on this investigation with the FBI, with the Texas Department of Public Safety, with the ATF, with the Galveston Police Department, as well as the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. This is something that will be handled collaboratively by both federal and state prosecutors. So you'll know there are 1 or 2 other people of interest that are going to be and are currently being interviewed. One is a person who was at the scene, and we cannot definitively say whether or not this is a person who may have had some level of involvement in the crime. There was just some suspicious reactions on the part of this person that we want to make sure that this person is adequately investigated. And then separate from that, there is another person where we have certain information that we want to make sure this other person is going to be fully interviewed to see if there's information to be gleaned from this other person